Allison, when we're looking at cross-industry inspiration, where do you personally look outside of the healthcare industry for creative inspiration, and how are you adapting those influences into this industry?
I mean, look, I think what we do here every day at DH is look at culture. I think culture for us is the definition of what's happening in the real world. Culture is so personal, it's in entertainment, it's in our lives, and I think health lives as a part of culture everywhere, every day. So it's not necessarily brands we're looking at trends, we're looking at industries, we're looking in and outside of health, and we're looking in health too. There's a lot of exciting things happening in health that are directing us. At DH, I've got a very strong creative leadership team that comes from all walks of life, and we bring our own diverse lived experiences at DH. But we also have created this, thank you to Matt for spearheading this, a global creative council too, where not only do we start to bring insights from our own local areas, but now I'm a part of a collective at Publicis Health across the world. And it's a tight-knit group. We're there to inspire each other and share learnings within our own geographic areas. Some insights are common, some are not. But I think it's this constant source of inspiration. And then lastly, we have opportunities quite often now to engage the Publicis Group consumer agencies. And that is where we see and learn even more from all walks of life here, from some of the best creative talent in industry. So I think where our inspiration is a constant here, coming from within our organization and outside of it too.
And I think what's cool too, like, the walls have been broken down, right? I think over a decade ago, when I was here the first time, Maurice Levy, who was CEO at the time, launched what we called the Power of One. Really this way to break down all of the silos that were between all of our different organizations and really infuse thinking from all the different sectors to stimulate thinking in other areas. And I think for us, that operating model has been super transformative. I think at a 40,000 foot level, what we do is we are exposed to CPG brands that I would argue are doing some of the best breakthrough creative in the market, right? They have to. It's highly competitive. Sometimes there's not a lot of differentiation from a product perspective. Some of the ideas behind our Global Creative Council was to get Allison and other creatives more connected to those folks. When I think about the evolution of DTC going from more top of funnel to more adherence, again, based on where the pharma pipeline is going, we work with some of the biggest hospitality brands in the world, right? So how are their customer service programs look like? What does their reimagination of CRM look like? And how can we infuse some of that thinking to transform pharma faster from all things CRM? And I think more importantly, you asked at the top of our conversation, really this idea of efficiency and effectiveness, but we also have to drive business outcomes. And if you look at a lot of the work that we do in the automotive industry, I would think one of the most response-based performance marketing type work, how do we infuse some of that thinking? So I think to Allison's perspective, it's not like pulling from a single brand, it's looking at various sectors and how can we kind of infuse all of those together and bring that into the pharmaceutical industry to make our work better and help to drive that transformation on behalf of our clients.
So in looking at all of the different sectors in terms of, travel, retail, entertainment, you mentioned automotive, is there one specific non-health example that you would want to try to pull in, or is it sort of like you said where you're trying to pull examples from each sector and get a learning there?
I look at it as, and I love your perspective, as stimulus, right? When I came back to Publicis Health, one of the mantras that I said is, I don't want this to just be good work that's in health, right? Often they say, well, that's great work for an oncology brand, or that's really great work for an ADH brand. We want to create work that is inspiring, and folks outside of our sector are like, what are those health kids doing, right? Like, what are they doing? So again, we just like to take the snippets. We don't want to mirror or mimic what's been out there. We want to take cues and use that as inspiration and hopefully set the bar, not only for the highest that we've seen in the pharmaceutical industry, but the highest that we've seen in marketing overall.
And from a creative perspective, one of my most favorite exercises is a divergent thinking one. So you might have a brand platform you're working with and an idea, and in order to evolve how you approach ideation for tactics, for experiences, you look at other categories, CPG, entertainment, hospitality, and say, how might Marriott do it? How might Airbnb do it? How might Peloton do it. But to me, it's dependent on what aspect of the brand you're trying to service, whether it is the brand experience, milestone celebrations, interactions. So we integrate that kind of thinking as we're looking at our own brands to see how might we expand our own idea.
Matt, as the global CEO of Publicis Health, you've talked about bringing together these teams and insights globally. So how are you doing this at Publicis Health in practice?
It's really interesting, right? Because I think first when you think about it, health is a global phenomenon, right? But it happens locally, right? It's super personal, as Allison have talked about. It's super local. When you look at our industry, the regulations vary kind of market to market, region by region. But a lot of things that we've done first and foremost were we started to assemble capability experts, and it started with creative. We talked a little bit about the Creative Council to really start to stimulate that global thinking and infuse that thinking into our creative development. And what does that look like? We're doing the same with our global strategy team, right? Connecting them from a strategy perspective. What is our strategic framework? How do we get to insights faster? What does that look like market to market, region by region? When we roll that up globally for global clients, what does that look like? And then also we're doing that from a growth perspective, right? Identifying who are the types of clients that we want to work with to help launch their next assets, and what does that look like? A lot of it has been process and framework. Again, not always the most interesting thing, but just creating an ecosystem and ways of working that connects all of our folks globally. And also we started with a global identity, right? We really didn't have that for a long time. So we landed this on an idea of Publicis Health, we make health happen. And how we landed on that is pretty simple, right? Our clients make the products and the assets and have all the great scientists and all the great marketers, and then we're servicing all the physicians and patients that either administer those products or are actually patients that get those therapies. We believe at Publicis Health globally, we unite all of those factors around the world to make health happen, right? To connect all those different areas and make everything from medcoms, clinical trial, commercialization, marketing, HCP, DTC, media, all of that work on behalf of our clients from a global point of view.
And Allison, how are you bringing together all of the global teams creatively to have everything resonate at a local level?
So for our global business, we're fortunate to have teams across the world. We gather together through the council. We work really well together. And I have to say, for such a large organization, at any given moment, I can pick up the computer and chat with anybody from Dubai to Paris to London. I know them now. They're my colleagues. They're my friends. We're there to help each other with the work. We're there to run work by each other when we need support. But most importantly, when it comes to the global brands we service together, we ensure that it can work at a master brand level, but we've got the ability to make sure it works at the local level too by sending it to our affiliates and getting feedback and working along the way with them. So it's a really, really healthy way of working across the group. And I just think everybody's just has the same ambition and drive to make great work together. So we push each other and help each other and support each other.
Yeah, we often say like it feels, we're a big holding company, right? We're the biggest out there, but it's very entrepreneurial. And I remember about 10 years ago, we did something at the group that wasn't very popular, right? We sat out of a lot of the award shows. We sat out of Cannes. And we used that money to invest in a platform that ultimately became Marcel, that connects all of us globally, right? So you can type in who has experience in this sector, who works in this country. You asked what brands we're inspired by. If there's a brand that we're inspired by, who's worked on X brand? We'd love your thoughts on how you came to that insight. How can we pull that in here? And now that also connects all of our clients globally. So the ways of working, the way it connects us, the way it makes us feel entrepreneurial, it takes a lot of the friction out of the system. That I just think it makes it a lot more seamless.
Allison, taking a deeper dive into this global connection with creativity, tell me a little bit about the philosophy of creative within Digitas Health, and then how does that fit into Publicis Health and Publicis Group?
So when I arrived, another one of the best kept secrets was our philosophy, which is connected for good. And we all know the power of Publicis Health and all of the data and insight and intelligence we have, but there's this little thought that was getting lost, and that's for good. And so I did the tour. I asked every question. I lifted every rock to say, what does that mean to you, planner? What does that mean to you, Karen, head of account? What does that mean to you, head of data and strategy, Chris? Tell me, what does doing good mean for you? And universally, like, we're all in this to help people live better, healthier, happier lives. And the work we do every day is in service of the greater good. It's in service of health care. It's in service of our clients who are affecting change, profound change in people's lives. So all of this is wonderful, but what really moves us is when we can touch a person on a human level, help somebody make a better decision about what treatment path they're going to go on, help somebody better understand the illness that they're living with, the medication they're about to go on, or the experience they're going to have with it. And all of that is in service of health care. So all of these connections are wonderful, but if we don't find this great idea that will really, truly, deeply connect with them, none of the change will happen. So what our philosophy really is for creative is that a great idea can make that lasting connection. And we've got all the connections we can make from a data perspective, but unless we reach them on a human one, none of it will matter. So that's where all of the power of the creative thinking and prowess brings the human touch, it brings empathy, and it brings insight, and most importantly, it brings humanity to make sure that all of these connections are done for good.
Allison, let's take out the crystal ball, and I want you to tell me what gets you inspired and excited for the next 5 to 10 years. And I know with industry changing, that's a really big ask, but tell me maybe even start with 5 years and then, go big with the 10-year prediction or where you see us.
Maybe I'll go somewhere in between, because I think as I look at my daughter, she's 11, I think about what her interactions as an adult with healthcare systems will be. And if I could fast forward to her adult years, I imagine a world where there's unlimited access to information. I imagine a world where accessibility to product, to care is much easier. I think we're still in a world where systems get in our way at the most important stages in our life. So I hope that 10 years from now, we're able, as a global healthcare system, really lead the way to make these experiences much more frictionless when it comes to access, when it comes to democratization of information, and when it comes to care. The brands play a role in that. Every experience we create will play a role in that. But if we can together make a more frictionless experience with healthcare, I think it's going to make a massive difference. So that's what I hope for.
And Matt, what gets you excited in terms of the future? If there was one thing you can choose, and Publicis Health and Digitas Health in helping us get to that point?
I mean, I think, again, the crystal ball thing in the future is a hard question, but when you look at this convergence of what we talk a lot about, all things clinical, and I think DH has nailed this idea of all things cultural. And I think the intersection of those two things coming with like the wonderments in science, right, that we're seeing, that people are living with oncology, you're living with HIV, like things that we'd have never imagined. So the science is there. Now to Allison's point, how do we culturally meet people and humans where they're going to be, right? How does the therapeutic regimen that you're on feel more like a membership and more like something you're proud to be a part of? And that brand is supporting you beyond the MOA and the clinical benefits that it brings you, but it's helping you live all aspects of your life better, right? How does it do that faster? To Allison's point, how does it make it feel more seamless? When I engage with my provider, how does that feel super easy and more compliant? And that the decision-making process isn't as arduous as it is now. And I think what gets me excited about Publicis Health is if I look at the journey that we've been on and the investments that we've made over the past 10 years plus, I believe better than any other holding company, any other network, any other independent, we're able to help solve that problem today, right? Through a lot of the things that we're doing. And we're starting to look at pharma brands in a very different light. So I think maybe not a future crystal ball, but a little bit of a look around the corner. But I think that's what gets me really excited, right? The reimagination of what healthcare marketing is. And I believe that there's no other company and organization and group of people out there that are ready to do that than Publicis Health and the agencies in our network.
And Matt, Allison, thank you for joining MedEd News today and sharing your insights
Thank
with
you.
us.
Thanks for having us.